Try. Hi, everybody. Can you let me know that you can hear and see me? Can someone let me know that? Hey, hi, Danny. Hi, Lisa. Awesome. Whew. So, this is a mystery school information call, and I'm a little bit under the weather, as you might be able to tell, but I do feel alert. And hi, Shayora. Shora, did I say that right? We're just going to take a couple of minutes to let anybody who's, hey, Marina. Oh, we're just going to take a couple of minutes to let anybody arrive who hasn't actually arrived yet, but plans on it. And if you're out there and you want to say hi in the chat and just let me know that you're here, that's awesome. I'll be recording this and sending this out for those of you who registered but couldn't make it. So hi to you as well. Let's take a minute here. So, in brief, which is probably why you're here, is her mystery school, which is the 9-month Deep Feminine Women's Mystery School that I hold, is about to go into its 4th year. It starts on September 28th, and it's 9 months long. So it's a very, for me, it's a much longer term offering and support structure than what I had been doing in the past before I created the school, and that is both exciting to me and very intentional. And what I wanted to be present for on this call is to any questions that any of you have as you're maybe feeling drawn and trying to sort out if this is your time or if it would work for you or just what it really is. So I'm really looking forward to questions that will help me direct what I'm about to share over the past bit of time. And otherwise, I'll just be kind of feeling into what seems fundamental and significant to me about the school, and especially in terms of who and how it serves, so that you can feel into what's right for you. I'll just take a couple more minutes before we get into specifics. If anybody else is out there and you want to say hi in the chat and let me know that you're here, feel free. And really, actually, if there are any questions that any of you have right now, right off the top of your head, you can put them in the chat. And that will help me. We can just start from there if there's anything that's really clear for you. And otherwise, I'll just share and we'll see what questions arise. Some of you are already in the school. I notice 3 out of the 4 of you that I know are here already are in like your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year, actually. Oh, Irene. Hi, welcome. Okay, the sound is working. She's gonna call in, but she's here. Okay, awesome, Irene. And so, Irene, I don't know when you call in, I'm not sure you'll be able to chat in any questions, but if I don't answer questions that you have, you can always reach out to support at her mystery school. And I'll say that multiple times if you need clarification on anything. Okay, let me just drop in for a second and see where we're going to start. All right, let's start with just the basic structure. So I'm assuming that many of you are already familiar with my teaching style, me in some way, either from courses you've taken or from videos, or you're on the newsletter. So you probably have a sense of where I orient from and what I tend to give voice to and focus on. Her mystery school is, in a lot of ways, because it's 9 months, it for me, it opens up more of the full breadth of both my work and my experience and my offering, and the full depth. It's an opportunity to go like long and deep. And I think one of the most significant pieces about it is that, yes, the idea, the beauty of it is that you enter into 9 months of rhythmic support and nourishment, where the deep feminine current inside of us, the deep feminine, the places of both fullness and deficiency inside of us, she thrives and she needs rhythmic nourishment and support. There's a way that it's the consistent remembrance, the consistent reminders, the consistent returning home again and again and again that starts to really carve out depth and personal power and capacities in us to hold our own deep feminine nature, to understand what that is, and to live from it, live in harmony and in true nature. So that's definitely on the very basic level what the school is created to do. It's created to literally make a container, an architecture around you, so that you can go more fully and more deeply into the transition that you're in, the reclamation that you're in, what's emerging inside of you, what you're healing, what you're recovering, what you're called to, in a way that it doesn't ask you to get it in a weekend or fix it in 21 days. It's saying there's time. There's time. Let's walk together with this. Let's see what emerges and let there be time and space and support for that to emerge. So there's a way that the 9 months, they're coming from my heart, my experience, come from inside of me, but also from beyond me, for sure, to a certain extent. And the most significant movement that happens through the teachings and through the time is that it will turn you toward yourself. This is not at all, it will address everything from the very practical, the very, discernment, boundaries, your choices, right? Very like what is going on and what's happening in life, and how can we feel more secure and more empowered, more clear, all the way through the emotional body, the way that we hold our mind and our thoughts, and into dimensions of spirit, and the the conversation, the posture that we have deeply, the communion we have or don't have with life, with God, with whatever that is in your language. And the most important thing is that, to me, is that the way that the teachings are oriented and the way that the practices are oriented is that they do give you an anchor point and something to surrender into, but you are surrendering deeper into yourself. There's nothing going to pull you out. So, it's not a school where you are now going to need to get all the curriculum, master all the practices, do all the things. It's not one more thing to be done. It is very much a rhythmic, nourishing, bathing, infusion. It asks you to again and again return to your truth, even to the extent of what in each teaching is really arriving for you, what's alive, and what is not. Are you in a time of life where you do the practices 5 times a week and you listen to the transmissions every day and this is just what you need? Or are you in a time of life where one transmission enters you and just wants to unfold for a week? There's a way that you are invited. It was intentionally created to meet all of us where we are, because I know the overextension and the excessive busyness and responsibility that so many of us hold, and that the teachings need to come in a way that actually support. So That's one thing I'll say about the school is it's very much made to meet you where you're at. That includes whether you are someone, there are women who go through the school who are just in a very personal journey. It's a time of needing needing themselves, needing a certain intimacy only with themselves. They're not wanting community. They're not wanting a lot of like interaction. They're not wanting to be on the Facebook group. They're not wanting maybe even to come to the calls. They just want to be supported inside of their very personal journey that they're going through. And that's the school can meet you there. And there are other women for whom there is a deep need for reverent, respectful, and profound connection with other women. And there's then support for that. So there's a Facebook group. There are weekly calls with me. I'll say more about the structure later. Um, there are dyad pairings. You can choose to be paired up with another woman in the school for personal connection and reflection about the practices each month. So there are ways in which, just like the deep feminine, the school itself can meet you where you are. And um, only asks that you be willing to receive and to return again and again to the pulse of your own deeper needs and to your own stepping forward into greater reverence for what you are. Um, so I'll just answer. Okay, Lisa and Danny, who are both in the school now. So, for those of you who are new, the school starts as a 9-month core curriculum. Now that it's in the 4th year of running, there are women who've gone through 2, 3, or going into their 4th year, some of them. So, you can stay connected to the school as long as you want and go through the core curriculum as many times as you want. A lot of women do that to continue going deeper and just to stay held. There's a way that the first year, some things will be extremely relevant, some things less so. You'll have certain times where you can be very present and other times where you might not really have as much time to be with the teachings. And so when women come through again a second or third time, they find that each time, all of a sudden there are things that are very much more alive, are more relevant to where their life has brought them now. So different teachings come to focus and come to fruition at different times, and they have time and space to deepen into maybe some of the curriculum that they weren't able to maybe the first year. Um, So Lisa and Danny are both here for that. And Lisa's saying she's here to see if she can get a better sense of where to place herself. It'll be her 3rd year. And Danny's saying she thought this was a different session. So there are a couple new things. I have a new mentorship coming. It's called the Queen's Command, and it's only for women who've already gone through at least one time. It's a 9 months of building on the core curriculum to go deeper into personal power. So Danny and Lisa, you can hang out if you want to, and I'll address more the longer term curriculum. I can address Queen's Command later and also talk about 3rd year more with you. But probably at the end, this is more intended to be for women who are just considering coming in for the first um, year. So hang out if you want to, and otherwise, either be in touch with me or with Jasmine. So let's see. That's a certain amount of overview in terms of what is the holding, what is the way that the school enters your life or meets you or operates as a mystery school. The to just give you an idea of what is the curriculum, so and how does it get delivered. Um, there are 9 months. Each month is focused on a different aspect of the deep feminine current. So the first month is the month of homecoming. That's where we arrive, and it's about sovereignty. It's about poise and deeply coming into residency, and it's where we start. It's where we begin. We land, and we set up the architecture around us of sovereignty, of discernment, of a basic foundational place from which to move. We go then into the second month, which is communion. And that month of communion is all about the arts of the relational. So the relational inside of you, we work with the marriage of heart and womb. But the relational, there's a week devoted to relating with others from deep feminine perspectives. Um, and what I mean by that, I mean the whole school is about an exploration of the deep feminine, but in general, it's working with principles of magnetism, nourishment, including and working with the way that the female body is subtly and physically created to thrive, right? The sexual current. Um, really working with subtlety, working with so much of what has been omitted for most of us in both our cultural lives, our family lives, and our spiritual lives. A lot of spiritual practices and teachings and organized religions and organized traditions were created without women involved in the creation of them, and not all, but most. And so they have beauty up to a point, and then they have a gap. And so we are filling in the gap. We're asking, and then what does my woman's body, what does the deep feminine current that lives in me and all women have to offer to this tradition? And how can it bring fullness to my sense of the sacred? So, communion is relational. It's about relationship to others, relations to some of the inner powers and resources that are inside of you, as well as your relation to all of life, right? How you're relating to the divine, how you relate to the bigger hands in which you are in. The third month, then we go into paradise, and paradise starts to look at Shakti, which is the moving um, the moving current of life energy and sexuality and vitality, like the garden. We talk about the garden a lot. How are you tending your garden? How can you move towards pleasure? How can you follow pleasure, kind of regardless of circumstance? We're not looking to imagine that life always, we can just make life pleasure all the time, but how can pleasure be an actual alliance with you, a place of medicine for you? That's the month of paradise. And Shiora, I see your question. I'll just finish this train of thought and then I'll answer. Um, the fourth month, then we go into the descent. The descent then takes us into being with all the initiations we didn't choose and never would have wanted. So the descent looks at the underworld journey and the what it is. It looks fully at this reality that life is annihilating at times. And that, we've gone from the third month of paradise where we're really tuning into all the ways in which the deep feminine honey and milk and the garden of delight that woman is and can be. And then we go into the descent from there and we look at the other truth, one of the other truths of deep feminine reality of our life, which is that, and sometimes we are asked to surrender to things that we never would have chosen, that are going to change us completely, take things from us that we never wanted to lose. And we restore deep feminine context around that, both how can we hold that journey in a way that at least eases it, giving it context, giving it place, so that we're not lost inside of it, even as we may feel lost inside of it. The descent is a really powerful, beautiful month. Um, some women are literally in a descent in their lives during the time that they are going through the school, and for others, it's more of a recapitulation, maybe turning towards times in their life from the past that they they could bring more awareness to and kind of harvest more wisdom from. In a way, there's a way that, okay, a descent can be as annihilating as a divorce, a death, deep a physical collapse. There are things that will really shake your life up from the very foundations. And but the sense in a way we're always all in that cycle of like something is emerging me and something else is dying. That is just kind of life. So for the descent, many of us can find at least one place in which we are releasing, we're shedding, and we're being asked to let go of something. Um, After the descent, we go into the month of Dark Mother. Dark Mother is um, a month of befriending the dark, coming back into alliance with the power and the potency of dark, the night, the silence, the incubation. Dark Mother is a lot about taking shelter in the unknown. We repair and we recontextualize the unknown, the dark, as a place of potency and nourishment rather than a place of fear. Dark Mother's a beautiful month, and it's like deep nourishment, and it happens right at the middle of the 9 months. From Dark Mother, we go into Alchemista. Alchemista then is moving into will force and movement. So we go deep into Dark Mother, really reclaiming this place of nourishment, shelter in the dark, shelter in silence, and in the unknown. And we move into Alchemista, which is deep feminine arts of creation, manifestation, if you want to say that. But how do we bring forth voice, our choices, our will force, what we want to create in a way that's still in alignment with deep feminine principles, that remains rooted in deep mother, rooted in nourishment, rooted in what's sustainable and what is true, actually true to us. So, as you might be getting a feeling that the 9 months stretch us into 9 aspects of deep feminine presence that and embodiment that are wide. When we go from paradise to the descent, we're stretching to really understand and carve out the fullness of what woman is, that it's not one thing, it's not just paradise where we feel sexy and sassy and juicy and yummy and sensual. Like, okay, it's also the descent when you feel devastated, when you have nothing to give, when you are being remade, right? It's Dark Mother. It's when you need to shelter and not know anything and cultivate and hold all your energy close, be incubated. And it's Alchemista when you are ready to be brilliant and send arrows of beauty and intention and creation out into the world, right? So there's for me, that's a big part of what I needed when I created this school. Was I needed to break out of even what often happens in a lot of feminine reclamation, which is the over focusing on a single aspect of her. The over focusing on the light and shiny and sensual, or the over focusing on the dark, right? So we're gonna open in all directions. And we're back around to what the 9 months are. After Alchemista comes Oracle. Oracle is a month of focus on self authority. We look again at, well, we look deeply at where you're sourcing your guidance from and where you may still be abdicating self authority, where you may be abandoning your own inner knowing for whatever reason, and where you may not have yet actually carved out the full access to it or your full alliance with it. Oracle's a beautiful month. Um, and then we go into Heavenly Mother. Heavenly Mother is kind of, in her way, she's the other pole of Dark Mother. She is the celestial, the light, the galactic, in a way, the subtle, the angelic, Mother Mary. It's that very refined precipitant, that very subtle, merciful salvation of the feminine. Her, yeah, her heavenly aspect. And then we complete the 9 months in Priestess, where we really, it's a culmination. It's also a claiming of sacred woman as you are, lineage, your own nature as sacred woman. So whether or not priestess is the name that you want to use for that, you are an instrument. So what are you, who and what do you serve? In what ways? Are you, what is, where is security and safety and integrity and thriving to be found? As you recognize that to be a woman in fullness is to be an instrument of much more than even just your own fullness. So those are the 9 months. You receive the curriculum online and you receive it weekly. So every week it's a transmission, a teaching with a practice. So the practice is 20, maybe sometimes a little longer, 20, 25 minutes. That will take you into an embodiment. I think of it actually as an entrainment. So they're meditative practices in a way, for sure. They're bringing you in, and but in a way, what they're doing mostly is entraining you to an embodied sense of what the teaching is about, so that you're not. It is about the practice, but it's not. It's not. It's more about you opening up and and gaining greater intimacy with how does sovereignty feel in you? How does the descending current, the descending mercy of Heavenly Mother enter you and fill you? You know, what is your garden? How is it doing? You know, so the practices really help you get into very authentic connection with what's actually true in you, and they entrain you to these sensibilities. And each week then too there's a short practice, so there'll be like a 5-minute short practice that's intended so that you have it and can say we're working with poise and periphery. We're working with coming back to center and establishing poise, vertical poise. So this short practice is something that you'd have then as you're going about your life. You feel off, you feel anxious, you feel whatever, you know, whatever's happening. And you can just go take 5 minutes and sink into the practice, realign and return. So that's a place where you're invited to integrate the practices into your life, into your daily life. When you do the practice when you do the longer practice, it's that you're really doing, you're taking time, you're entering sanctuary, you're taking time to, in quietude and in presence, to really be with the practice. And the shorter practices are really for you to say, like, yeah, no, now I'm in the fullness of my life. Everything's happening. And right now, right in this moment, I need to restore poise. I need to get clear about what my boundaries actually are here. I need to receive grace, whatever it is. And so you can take a moment and keep, you know, you're exercising these muscles of realigning yourself and your life to these principles, to these deep feminine sensibilities. um, so that's the main structure of the curriculum. I then have a call with you every week, so it's formatted like this. You can ask questions. You can also send in questions that I can address if you can't make the call. And the call is recorded every week and sent out. So it alternates on Thursdays, 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. Pacific time. Um, and that's a time to go deeper, to have more connection and more conversation about what we're working with that week, what's coming up. Um, so that's the basics of the curriculum. And then the big moment at the end, there is a retreat at the end of May. It's here in Ashland, and that is when we come together and we are together in the practices, in the sensibilities, and it's beautiful. That is the opportunity to really be in the flesh, in presence with the other women in the school and with myself and the mentors. Um, and yeah, and it's amazing because we've spent 9 months all with the same language, all walking side by side, even though we haven't been in the same room. And then we come together, and the retreat is exquisite. So that's the school. Um, Let me see. Sheora is saying, so any questions about any of that, feel free to put them over here in the chat room and I will respond to them. Sheora is saying, what is the energy around chronic health challenges and the care and caution around victim blaming? So common in modern healing and teaching modalities. I think I need a little clarification. I mean, if you could clarify a little bit what you mean by care and caution around victim blaming. Yeah. So okay, because I have been deeply on my own journey of healing a really serious and severe health challenge. The school is actually very influenced by that. Okay, what I would say is that in terms of how I hold chronic health challenges and victim blaming and things, so chronic health challenges, I would say generally, and at least in my experience, my what has helped me is to recognize my depletions, to shift my life. It's been necessary to shift my life to places of like to um, very discerning choices about who and what I let in, where I put my energy, what I do with my energy, all those things. So, in a way, I'd say the school supports working with chronic health challenges in the way that it's bringing you into more attunement and more mastery around your own energy and around knowing what is for you and what is not for you. So that applies to all of us no matter what. But I think when you're dealing with a chronic health challenge or when you're dealing with the resolution of trauma that's really deep seated, this reclaiming of what that voice inside that knows what is for you and knows what is not for you, that the turning again and even more deeply to yourself, no matter what it is, no matter if it's that you're exhausted and this is what you are right now, or there's pain or whatever's happening, that there's a consistent turning toward yourself and your own tending your own energies, learning gentleness, maintaining uh, um, my belief is that part of where we suffer as women especially is that we are made to be infused by resources bigger than ourselves. That creation actually is full of them, but we often aren't trained and we are often blocked to them, or they're disregarded. Our needs and or the existence of them is disregarded. So we do a lot of turning toward nourishment that infuses us. So I think you can let me know if there's more specific question you have about that, Shura. um, she's saying there's compassion and acceptance and carefulness regarding the temptation of judgment. Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is that there's a sensitivity in you around, okay, I might be hearing this wrong, but what I think you're speaking to is I think what you're speaking to is the tendency in a lot of group mind stuff. It's floating around a lot out there, like, well, you create your own reality, so therefore you must be at fault for whatever's happening, or yes. She's saying, yeah. Yeah, I think that's crap. So, I mean, I don't, how I hold so for me, it's both, right? Like, yes, we do, in a way, we have choice, we have resource, we have, um, the school does support sovereignty, but it's sovereignty in the face of everything that life actually is, which is that it it brings us experiences that will bring us to our knees, and it has nothing to do with anything other than this is life. And our choice inside of it is, how will we care for ourselves? Will we resource? Can we you know, what will we choose? I mean, there is power that I think we have, but I find that that idea of we create our own reality and this kind of well, things like I'm hearing are things like, oh, just remove all your blocks to receiving and you'll be rich, or just remove all your blocks to blah 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 and you'll heal. It's like no, I don't think that it works that way. So yeah, that's my feeling. And in terms of victim blaming, I would say that how I hold that piece around what is it to have an experience that is in its way victimizing, that does take your power away, or that, it's like in the descent, what we're addressing are things that will strip you bare. That we're not talking about like, oh, I got a bad haircut. You this is like, my descent. When I went through my deepest descent, I couldn't meditate. I couldn't do any practices. I was stripped of everything, every inner resource that I had. I lost everything. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the descent, and what soul forging is happening there. What is the deep feminine context that at least gives that place, rather than saying, rather than the other things that you're saying, which is like, oh, it just means this, or it just means that, or it's not okay, or it somehow doesn't have place. This level of suffering, this level of disorientation and annihilation has to be given place, sacred place, and sacred context. So, to return to your thing about the victim piece, the way that I tend to see it is that it's important to get the message. It's like get the message, but hang up the phone. So it's like it's important to. I'll just say it like, for instance, I work a lot with, have a whole book about clearing past lovers. So, for instance, it's really important to get the message that, like, your partner betrayed you, lied to you. This was all the impact of that. Like, to recognize that in a way, yes, you were the victim of that. That what there were not choices that you were making. You were not responsible for their choices, right? And it's important to name it. It's important to say, yeah, look at the experience and the cost and the impact. But then hang up the phone. So for me, it's like then it's really important to name that, but then it's really important to be able to turn fully toward yourself again. And, like in that case, for instance, to pull back all energy from that, from the experience, from that person, from that, to bring it back to yourself and have yourself again. And um, that's a lot of what the school is supporting, is saying like, all right, you've definitely had impacts. We all have. We have deficits now. We have confusion. We have so many things. And there are, but there are ways to repair. There are ways to actually fully recover. That there is something, what the school holds is, it's not that we don't get hurt. And it's not that we don't experience impacts, but that always there is something incorruptible inside. The deep feminine current is incorruptible. She abides. And we walk in all the ways that we walk to make medicine of our experiences, to initiate through these things that are inevitable in our lives. And so for me, that's more what empowerment would be. It's about restoring ourselves, using all these things to restore ourselves to deeper residency here and deeper resource from our need. The thing that a lot of, experiences like the descent, like annihilations, like the difficulties, the way that they serve to, in their own brutal way, the way that they serve to help us open to more of what we are is that they push us to a place of such deep need that we have no choice but to sit in it and say, I need, and then to be open to receiving what will then come to us. It puts us in a place of vulnerable but authentic communication with our deeper nature and the nature of the world. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. She's saying she holds it and is grateful, and similarly, and is grateful that I do as well. I will say that in the month of Alchemista, we do work in a very wonderful way with your choice and how you can. What I call it more is alchemizing. It's like it's not really. I'm not buying it. This thing of like you choose what you want, and you do it right, and you get it, and that's your success. It's more for me. We look at alchemizing when you have all these things moving in your life. You have a choice, a desire, a yearning inside of you. How do you alchemize that? How do you work with that in your life? And maybe it will bring the thing that it seems to want. The most important thing is that you're on your own life current. And in Alchemista, we work with a process that I was taught maybe 8 or 9 years ago that helped me hugely to create a water temple, to create the school, it did help me tremendously to focus my will force, to focus my birthright to choose. Um, and so we do work with that, and that is empowering in its way, and it is part of the creation process of being a woman, for sure. Um, and then Shore also had said she feels like she's done a lot of this work, but have missed some key pieces that are needed for a context of total wholeness. Um, I I agree with you. That was part of my own. So when I created her mystery school, for me, it was I had been on this path for 2 decades, and I had been just following, uh, following one calling after the other, and I needed wholeness. I needed to. I thought of it almost like my thesis. My life's thesis was her mystery school when I created it, and um, I needed too that sense of wholeness where I realized that it was the deep feminine that I had been circling around, but that I also needed the full breadth. Like I needed a wholeness, exactly. I needed a place where I understood how all of me interacts, how all of me can thrive without canceling itself out. How can I be simultaneously a garden of delight and a devastated um like and annihilated at the same time? Because both are true. So there is a beautiful wholeness to the curriculum and the way that the curriculum's held. Um, Shura is saying her business name is Alchemy's Arrow, where choice meets change. That's awesome. You're gonna like Alchemista, actually. You might like it a lot. Um, Anu, hi Anu. She's saying, would the 9-month course help me discover my purpose and help me see how divine feminine life energy works? Would it train me in hearing and seeing the divine feminine? For sure. What so Anu, how it so it is entirely about. I mean, I use the word deep feminine, divine feminine, whatever you want to call that, but it is all about actually what is the deep feminine current? How does she move? How 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 do you know, how do you feel her inside of you and around you, right? And so the 9 months is basically it is a very saturated collection and a gathering of 2 decades, and it is all about that. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of naming exactly what the school is for. So I think it would support you deeply, and most importantly, what it would support you in doing is owning that. So what is the language that she speaks when she moves through you? What is the language that she speaks when she's moving towards you, right? So discovering the deep feminine current as an authentic reality that is yours, a language that is yours. So I have mine. Every woman has her own. And there is a way that the deep feminine current is one true thing. But she expresses in so many ways, and the most important thing is that you feel her and you know yourself as her, and just that it's yours. So there's a lot of holding in terms of, yes, I'm going to be bringing practices that are specifically about cultivating deep feminine presence, specifically about realigning to the deep feminine current, to aligning with the way that deep feminine moves, which is very different than how our general mainstream culture often moves. So there are specific practices. You are going to be very held in a lineage of teachings, in a lineage of practice that will guide you there. But it will also, as part of that, what you're being guided to is a very something that you can trust, something that doesn't feel like it's mine, something that feels like it's yours, and that will then be with you for good. Um, and in terms of it, will it help you discover your purpose? Yeah, I think for sure. I think if you bring that intention, women come to the school for all sorts of reasons. In all sorts of times of life. They are of all ages, from early 20s to 85. They are of all races, ethnicities. They're all over the world. And so what matters, and we will do this together when we begin, is that you set your intention. If your journey Anu is to really understand your purpose, you want that to arrive inside of you. And it sounds like also, to me, they're very woven, like how deep feminine energy works. How can you hear and see that inside of you? That is probably what's going to bring you to your purpose, because you'll be able to hear and see and know what's really alive in you, what does want to emerge. Your purpose isn't out there. It's not a thing that you're going to realize and then, like, it's figured out. Your purpose is going to arise from inside of you, and it will arise. You'll get clear. Like, I know my purpose, for instance, at least one of them, is to hold this school. That's clear. Like, that's very concrete. How that arrives moment to moment, though, is a very living thing. So I think, in terms of how does deep feminine energy move, well, she constantly arises. So when you're aligning around your purpose from a place of deep feminine current, and the way that you move, the way that she moves, then you'll get on the pulse of your purpose, so that it's living through you, and you get to be with the emergence of it. So I hope that answers your question, Anu. Um, Najla is saying she's going to be entering her third year. Hi, Najla. She found this school to be very validating of exactly where she was, and gave her the space for deep healing as she needed. Both the validation and empathy that she was fine exactly where she was. And this year, she's now coming out for the first time, really ready to embrace her power. That's beautiful, Najla. And I think that was the hope. That's the intention. That's what I hear. Is that I mean, for me, a lot of what, if Anu, if you want to talk about, like, how does the deep feminine move? Well, she meets what is and allows it. And then it becomes what it wants to be in its own timing, right proportion, right relationship. So the school, it's going to meet you where you are and ask you to just be with that for a minute. Let it be, and then watch what happens. That there is no, we're coming fully out of all the boxing in, all of the control, all of the taming of the deep feminine life current, to let her really move, to let you be what you are, and to evolve from there in a way that actually is true to you. Sheor says, I get the impression that the school nourishes the underpinnings of what allows one to bring a creative vision into reality. Would you say that's true? I do think that's true. It nourishes a lot of the underpinnings of just how are you relating. Yes. um, because to to bring a creative vision into reality, there are things that you need. You need to be able to hear yourself. You need to be nourished. There needs to be right timing, right action, um, and a certain amount of capacity. Especially when you're bringing something new in. We're birthing things all the time as women, and so to recover deep feminine sensibilities is to really, really, like, let that be the resource that it is, to align around, like, oh, we're birthing. We're not just like making this stuff up, or we're stepping out of reacting and responding to the shoulds, to what's wanted, even to all the false urgencies that we think are pushing us along and we think we need to meet, to really come down into to what's here. And again, the month of Alchemista, very much the month of Alchemista. So I would say the other months, the first 3 months are basically laying a foundation. It's homecoming, communion, paradise. Sovereignty coming into residency, foundation, communion, the relational. How do you then stay with your sovereignty, stay with your foundation as you're starting to relate, as you're starting to move with other? And then paradise. How can you tend to your garden no matter what? Where is the current of aliveness inside of you? Those 3 months are foundational. We go into then Dark Mother and Descent and Dark Mother, where now it goes deeper. And we very intentionally start with the foundation of the first 3 months before we go into the Descent and Dark Mother, so that we're solid in principles. We're solid in a certain sense of residency and resource. And then when we come out of Dark Mother, we move into Alchemista, we go into Oracle, and what we're going into then is more, that's when we go into more reclaiming. So Alchemista is more where you say, like, and now what are some of the really effective, powerful arts of deep feminine creation and moving with will force, refining will force, opening up the power of will force and choice. And then Oracle, same, self-authority. How radically can we claim authority, and from a place of knowing and trusting ourselves that deeply, and having that indwelling compass, that indwelling guidance that is the birthright of every woman, that lives in her, having that be a clear voice. um, I was just saying, the best I can explain it is it's like having a good and loving mother who just held me in my distress, tantrum, and upset. She just holds me and rocks me and lets me feel loved and held. And only when I'm done, she offers possible answers and reminders of my choice and power. Not as lecture or shame, but as help and love offering. I have always felt held exactly as I am. It has not just been a spiritual journey. For me, it has been a healing journey as well. That's so beautiful, Najla. Thank you. I'm gonna copy that right now. Um, it's really helpful for me. So I, when I created the school, it was in me, but it was also, I say this every time. I actually take the school every year. I re-enroll because the practices and the sensibilities are ever deepening. I mean, there is never. I don't think there's any end, because there's no end to us. So these are practices that are supporting the unfoldment, getting on the pulse of your unfolding, getting on the pulse of your emergence, and it never ends. So anyway, I take the school every year because a lot of what came through, and a lot of what, like, sometimes when when I first created it, by the time I was in month 4 or 5, I couldn't even remember what all had come through the first 4 months, or 3 months. There's such depth to it, and when I listen to them, sometimes it's like listening to someone. It's like having myself as my own teacher. But so what I want to say is, like, I'm not trying to say I channeled it, but in a way, yeah, more things came through. A lineage came through. A deep feminine lineage came through and landed and created a structure that holds me and then holds anyone who joins the school. So yes, I take it, and It's been extremely, actually, it's saved my life, I would say. Um, you're welcome, Anu. Um, Shora is saying, would I say the school can work in tandem with someone working on a big project? For sure. Yeah. I think it can work in tandem with pretty much anything, partly it's because it's made so that you can interact with it to the, I mean, within reason. You want to be involved, but you can it's not going to take more than you have to give. It's going to support you where you are. So it tends to work beautifully well with someone who's, yeah, launching a business, creating a big project, becoming a mother, going through transition, or someone who is I just had a Buddhist woman reach out to me, and Christian women, and all Muslim women have all taken the school. So even next to their religious um, path, this is just it fills in gaps, right? It realigns to deep feminine current. So I think it can be really helpful. The other thing I will mention is that, oh, and she's saying, interesting that 9 months is the gestation period and is the deadline she's set for completion of what she's birthing. That's awesome. Um, what I will also say is that there is the mentorship, the personal mentorship option with the school. And so what that means is that you can go through the core curriculum and you have the calls with me once a week. If you want more support, you can do a personal mentorship, and that then gives you a 75-minute session, each personal private one-on-one session with one of the mentors. There are three mentors: Jasmine, Jamila, and Dionysia. And they also have short, potent additional teachings that come out each month. So the way that the mentorships work is, so for instance, Jasmine has devotional self-care and spirited business. So if you're someone who's launching your business, or you're an entrepreneur and you want to go through the core curriculum with a focus on how you're going to move into your business, or shift your business so that it's aligned more around deep feminine principles, you could choose to work with Jasmine, and then you would have one-on-one support with her specifically around that topic as you are um, in the 9 months. Dionysia works with sexuality and intimacy. So if what you're working through in your life has a lot to do with intimate relationship you're in, or your own journey around your sexuality, and you want to be in the 9 months and you want specific support and focus around your sexuality, intimacy, then you could work with her. Jamila's mentorship, she has Medicine Woman and Oracular Dreaming. So there's just, you can look at them online. That's the option for if you want more one-on-one support throughout the 9 months, and especially if you want it focused specifically on a particular aspect of your life journey. Najla is saying, as an aside, I've also become a better mother to your children. Her children. Yay. We like it when it moves through all the generations. I noticed that this time, actually, there were a few women. I just noticed it. It might not be that it's new, but I noticed women applying, saying, I really want to do this because I'm noticing this or that with my children, and I don't want to pass that on. There was more of a sense this year for me of, oh, this is like, there's intervention happening. This is also about um, stopping the the lineage inheritance of some of the things that we do not want to, that we want our children to be free of, or we want them to be nurtured in a different way than we were. um, Shura is saying, for her, doing her path work makes her more ignited and productive in life. Oh, and she's writing book one of her life's work. Awesome. Yeah, I think this could be amazing. Well, I mean, yes, I think it'd be beautiful. And you know what, the thing about her mystery school is that it's also made to just rhythmically nourish the deep feminine current. So it's like, whatever you're doing, that part of us that kind of suffers in silence, or we don't even recognize it sometimes, that's just that's depleted, that's tired, that's thirsty for something that life is just not quite meeting. That's the deep feminine current. And she she needs rhythmic, like anything that grows, anything that's alive, she needs rhythmic support and nourishment. So even, I think for some women, it's just they just listen to the transmission. They might not even do the practices, but just to bathe in that once a week and to be reminded. A lot of women say like, "Oh," and this is great. You're, "Oh, this is like you're articulating things I already knew," or it's more of a remembrance, right? Um, and so to have that part of ourselves nourished and given place, there's a way that some of the deeper needs of the female psyche, of the female body, of the female being have been vilified or pathologized or disregarded. And the and we have off most of us, many of us inherited just that kind of like, is this even important? And then things happen. We get depleted to the place of breakdown. We don't understand why we feel the way we feel, or we don't understand what it's like. There's a restlessness, or there are different things that I think at the core are just it's our deep feminine nature suffering and thirsty and depleted, and she just needs nourishment. Um, Shura saying, "This is what a mystery school is supposed to be." Yes. Reminds her of Avalon and the Druids. Yes. I definitely have I love Avalon. Um, so we're at an hour. If there are there any other questions? And is Lisa, are you still here? Or did Lisa, or who is here? Lisa and Danny. If either one of you is still here, I said, "Oh, yay. Okay, Lisa's still here." So what was your question, Lisa? You were thinking about, and any of the rest of you who have questions about first year or anything, please go ahead and write it in the chat. We'll have about another 10 or 15 minutes. And then if anything comes up, support at her mystery school is where to write to. And to register, you can just go online. I'd love to have you. I'm really excited about this year. There's a way that now that it's coming into its fourth year, it feels like it's landed even more, especially now that there are women who have been in it for 3 or 4 years. It is feeling very much like a college. Like there's a it's fertile. Um, so yeah, okay. So Lisa and Najla both would like to hear about, I think, the new mentorship. And Lisa, I don't know if you had other questions as well. So the new mentorship, and some of you coming into first year, this might be of interest to you because it is like essentially like the second year curriculum. It takes the first 9 months. And okay, so I'll just start telling you. So the idea, the inspiration behind the new mentorship, which is called Queen's Command, is I wanted to really address personal power and um, like personal power is what I wanted to address. And I wanted to do that by building on what we created the first 9 months and pulling out each month like a single focus. And the idea, or the part of it, I mean, most of it was just like, okay, this is what's coming through next. But um, this archetype of the queen, rectifying the archetype so that it's not a false archetype anymore, so that it is the generous, resourced, sovereign, but very abundant and loving archetype that it was meant to be. Um, and that we graduate fully from the princess to the queen. That so the the Queen's Command, each month is a very specific focus on a specific um, aspect of deep feminine power cultivation, meaning, you know from all of the deep feminine sensibilities and practices and how the deep feminine current moves and thrives, what are really um, key practices, key masteries that um, are necessary in order to really thrive as an instrument of her, of this deep feminine current. So, the first month, and this is the one that I've created so far, it's homecoming. So we're taking it deeper into the art that we're focusing on is cultivation. And what came about as I was creating it is it's cultivation through consolidation. So, for instance, this month we're pulling focus to consolidation, saturation of power, to what's really common for women on levels both subtle and sometimes really obvious, is that we bleed off our power, we bleed off our energy, and we don't the capacity, almost like the capacity for saturating in our own essence and energy and consolidating and actually being more potent is something that we need to work on. There's a tendency to bleed it out, to disperse, and to distract. So that's the first month. The second month, for instance, going, that's our month of communion. Oh, and the way that it's held is that each month is a claiming. So you claim the queen in you, meaning each month is saying, all right, you've had the first year and you've tasted and you've bathed and infused and really nourished with the core curriculum. Now let's focus. Let's bring up a single claiming each month so that you can actually go a little deeper into actually claiming it. So the first month of homecoming, through consolidation and cultivation, we claim the throne. Just claiming it as the throne, which should mean a lot to you just from having done the core, but like the core curriculum already, but that place of sitting in power and the place of refuge that can be. The second month, then, for instance, we claim rapture as a necessity for the deep feminine current. She must experience rapture. We have to claim that. Just as we have to claim that the throne is a need, that we need the throne underneath of us, behind us. We need to sit in it. That we also need to claim rapture. Like I claim my right to rapture. And so the art that we work with that month that we focus on is translucence. We deepen into the experience of translucence, but also sifting and sealing that translucence so that it's more masterful. And so it goes like that. That's how the curriculum is going to unfold. Each month a claiming, each month a really focused practice, with the idea that you'll do that practice repeatedly and you'll stay focused on that claiming for the month. So as the 9 months is kind of like this rhythmic, it's just like wave after wave, and whatever comes in, whatever, it's just like it's an infusion, right? This is more of like it's a there's accountability in it, but there's a held focus so that even more depth can be carved out. So when you hold your focus on the throne for a month and you hold your focus on consolidation and cultivation for the month, that's the idea. Single practice, single focus. And you have, so Najla, the way that it works, she's asking about the mentor. You can work with either one of the mentors, Jamila, Jasmine, or Dio. Um, and you just choose. They're not. It's not like they're holding a separate mentorship. The mentorship curriculum is the Queen's Command, but they are holding. Um, they'll be having. You have a session with whichever mentor you choose. You have a session with her each month, and that's where you basically can come and say, "All right, I'm claiming the throne, and this is what's happening. Like I'm noticing this, that, and this. This is my life, and how does this it's like it brings it all, wants to bring it all the way through to your life, and reflection and support and mentorship around, all right, what's the full application, what's how is this unfolding in your life, this topic, this focus. um, and you can choose, basically, it's same, you can have a 20-minute discovery session with any of them to feel into who would be right for you, but you're basically just choosing who you feel would be good to work with, just where your resonance is. um, yeah. And there is, so you have your one-on-one session with your mentor every month, and they will also, because there is an accountability piece to it. They will have, they'll figure out some homework for you, based on your very specific life. So it's like, oh, okay, we have our session, and afterward, your homework is to, you know, once a week tell your husband how you really feel in this way, without entitlement, without pushing, without judgment, whatever, like they will help to say, okay, where is your very particular edge of this? And how could you, what would be a great homework assignment for you to really bring this into action? So we're wanting to bring it all the way through with Queen's Command. Um, Queen's Command. Oh, and I wasn't originally going to do this, but now that the curriculum's coming through, I'm going to be having then a group call with just Queen's Command women each month. So we will have a group call where we can focus in, and I want to talk with you and be um, connected to you as you go through it. And so that will be happening as well. So the curriculum, the personal mentorship, and then the call with me is kind of the basics of it. Um, Shore is saying it sounds like the first is a more receptive principle and the next more active. One is finding the land, and next is cultivating it. Yeah, that's a very wonderful way to say it. Exactly. There's a way that it's like, it's not that Queen's Command lacks gentleness. I mean, it's not going to move into that place where you're like, where's boot camp? It's still invitation based, but it holds all of us. And again, I'm already in it actually, but it holds all of us around, like, all right, consolidation. Eh, What I've experienced, for instance, is like, it's amazing how often I won't just choose the simple act of consolidating and coming home to myself. I'll do all these other things. And what we're focusing on is like, yeah, no, just come home to the throne and see what happens from there. Can it be, and it is in a lot of ways that simple. But we have to, it's like taking the entrainment a little deeper and like focusing the stream. And what it is, I did mention in the email that went out that it is a Queen's Command has become a prerequisite. Eventually, I am going to teach a whole priestess arts curriculum. There'll be an ordination program through her mystery school, and that's going to be more in person. And what I've realized is that Queen's Command is the beginning of that. It is the prerequisite, and not that you may or may not want to like step into priestess, but these arts of inhabiting yourself as an instrument. And um they're deep energetic arts. They're going to be sourcing from Taoism and deep tantra, and the water. They're going to be sourcing from different places that I've traveled and harvested. um what are some of the others? In Paradise we claim sovereign sexuality. um and I forget, oh, the practice that we focus on that month is absorption. In the Descent, and some of them are exciting because some of them are very much like deepening what we've started in the first year. Some of them are also taking it further. Like, so for the Descent, we're going to work with sealing the descent. So we're going to work with, how do you make final harvest and seal up your journeys of descent when they are actually complete, so that they're sealed and they're done. So it's some of that one's exciting to me. Dark Mother, we're going to claim shelter and work with emptying more deeply. Um, Alchemista, we claim will force fully. And hell yes, no pun intended, sure. um, Alchemista, we it's a more full claiming of will force, and we work with transmutation. We focus more in on the actual power of transmutation. So, when I think about Alchemista, for instance, that month has a lot in it. I think that's the month where a lot of women actually go into a little overwhelm if they're trying to like get it all. So Alchemista, the to be able to kind of move into a full month of just focusing very specifically on the power of transmutation, um, feels like it will bring out it brings out like a golden thread of that month. Oracle, we focus on claiming self-authority maybe, and the practice is distillation. um, Again, that would be more of like a full claiming of self-authority. I think that's what the claiming is. Heavenly Mother, we claim salvation, and we work with the practice of sanctification. So we claim that salvation is a real thing, that that we need it, and that it exists, and and the practice is um, sanctifying and blessing. How we do that for ourselves and for others. And then in Priestess, the the claiming is your very unique nature as sacred woman, and the art is remembrance. It's working with more deeply with remembrance. So that's Queen's Command. I mean, for me, it answers this kind of question of like the empowerment dilemma of what is feminine empowerment really. And you know if you've been through the school, we talk about the queen archetype. We talk about what is it to be really empowered from a deep feminine place. It's also very different than what a lot of feminine empowerment often, the portrait of empowerment that we're often given as our world keeps trying to recover its self. Um, it's looking very deeply at what are the underpinnings, um, what are the arts of cultivating personal power that's still in alignment with all that is, all that was carved out, and all that's true inside of deep feminine experience. So I'm actually very excited about it. um, and I'm more, when the when the school first came through, it was just like, wow. Now this is different. It's really sweet to come back around and kind of have a sense of, oh, this is how this works for me. This is, oh, okay. This is the process of listening and gathering these things. So it feels, um, it's a maturing in a way. Obviously, I mean, it's the next step for the school. But anyway, any questions other that I didn't answer about it? I made a little video. I sent it out recently to those of you who are already in the school, and it tells a little bit more about it. Irene is saying, if we have to miss 2 to 3 sessions, is it still possible to participate? Oh, cool, Irene, I got you. I got a message from you on the call. It's so fine. I mean, what is kind of understood is that 9 months is a long time, and the beauty of it being a long time is that you're held for a really long time, and that there's time and space. Um, However, it's inevitable that, you'll travel, or, you'll go through something, and you might miss several sessions. You might just Some women, for instance, there'll be a teaching that is really powerful for them, and they won't want to move on from it. They'll be in Dark Mother, and they'll be like, no way, I do not want to go to Alchemista right now. I am so happy in Dark Mother. Like, I'm nourishing, I'm drinking it in. Like, you know So they shouldn't. My recommendation would be don't. You have the curriculum and you have access to the curriculum indefinitely, like forever. So, that means yes, if you're away for a few weeks, but also know that because it's online, you can, wherever you are, in terms of just listening to the transmission, or even just, a lot of women listen to the transmissions at night while they're going to bed, puts them to sleep. So there's a lot of ways to engage with it. And you know, women women do, some make the calls and some don't. There's a lot of women who never make a call because of timing or whatever. So um yeah, so it's very fine to miss some of it. Um oh cool, because Irene's going to be traveling for a bit in October. Yeah, so fine. Um It's mostly about you not putting pressure on yourself. There is a way that the school does follow a certain arc, but each month is also unto itself. So I mean, you want to probably at least listen to the transmission each week, even if you're just listening to it while you're driving, just to kind of stay on the pulse. But it's okay. It's mostly, I think, women put pressure on themselves to interact with the curriculum in a specific way, and then they get overwhelmed. Because when I created it, I intentionally wanted to refine it and make it really. I didn't want a bunch of extra fluff. I wanted it to be really potent and to the point. But what that ended up making is that even though they're not really long, they're very rich, and there's a way that, it's rich. You can take it in little bite sizes, and that's really okay. Um, Najla is saying she's excited about Queen's Command. Awesome, me too. And she's mentioning that she was in the Descent and Dark Mother the entire 9 months last year. Exactly. I think that's really true. We are our lives are in very different phases. That's why for a lot of women, when they do it once 1 year and they come back around for a second or third year, they find that, like, oh, though that's right. Yeah, last year my year was pretty much about the descent. I was going through a divorce, or I was this or that, and that's really where I was. But this year it's changed. Like, I feel more like, oh, the teachings of Alchemista are really starting to arrive. And so there is this beautiful way that we change, we change, and as we come to the teachings and these things, they show things that we didn't even see before, or we weren't really ready to hear, or really it just weren't quite the fit. A lot of women will say, like, oh my god, I didn't even hear that last time. They'll listen again and be like, oh, like, I didn't even hear you say that last time. um yeah, the first year she followed the whole curriculum because that was what she wanted to do, and I was just saying, yeah. Lisa, you're welcome. And I'm guessing you got all your questions about Queen's Command answered. Shayor is saying, "What about those of us with voracious appetites who can't get enough of the material? You will probably be pretty saturated." But there's definitely a way of, like, the high the end of the other end of the spectrum of taking it slow is to, yeah, be on all the calls, be active on the Facebook group. You can listen to the transmissions multiple times, and each time you do, you'll hear something different. Just as if you did it 1 year and another year. They're like that. They're pretty thickly layered. Oh, and Najla's mentioning there's also a reading list, which is true. I did put together also a reading list of books that I've loved, or books that really inspired and relate to the curriculum. And some of those are, well, all of them are really amazing. Um, yeah. There's also, actually, Shura, there are, the mentors will hold about four, we call them deep dives. So you can enroll, it's like a 3-week deep dive into a single practice. So that'll happen maybe 4 times throughout the year. So there'll be a deep dive into paradise, or there'll be a deep dive focusing on, the choice practice in Alchemista. So that's a way to both have a little extra time focusing on a specific practice and do it with a little more connection to other women who are in there in the school. And I was just saying there's lots of material, no worries on that. I know. More challenging for her was to not beat herself up for not doing it all. Yeah. I feel like it's like I wanna say that even more this year. I say it every year, but I feel like I wanna say it multiple times because what happens is a lot of times, even though I say that, around about month 6, around about Alchemista time, women start to fall away because they get overwhelmed and they feel they have pressure to do it a certain way. So, um, yeah, no, it's not that. We're doing it all differently. Okay, well, we've had a nice hour and a half together. I really enjoyed it. And Shura says it sounds amazing. She's definitely in if she can make it work financially. I'd love to have you. It is on a sliding scale. It's intentionally so the school is a ministry. It's ministry based. So there's all sorts of ways in which it aligns around a ministry rather than a business. And one of those ways is that it's on a sliding scale in the hopes that somewhere on the scale will be doable, and that you can find what's easeful for you inside of that. Awesome, ladies. Well, we start soon. I hope you're coming because this was really nice. And I love us. I love us. Just each time the collection of women is just so beautiful and awesome. And we start soon. Sure is feeling all juiced up. Awesome. Me too. I think that means we're doing something right. Um, okay, so I'm gonna hop off. If you need anything, any questions about registration, about anything we talked about, support at her mystery school is where to go. Hey, yeah, I'll see you on the 28th, Najla, and hopefully many of you others. Okay, bye. Have a beautiful day.